Number 10 is a monster used by Alexis Rhodes when she was mind-controlled by old Kumar over there in his Society of Light. Yeah, his last name's Kumar in some of the games. You'll know if you watch my trivia video. Go check that out if you haven't. I bet you'll learn something. In either case, Snow Fairy is a level 4 light fairy that acts as an anti-spell fragrance on the field. Simple effect, but like most anti-spell effect monsters, its stats and ability to die to just about anything makes it especially vulnerable to just being run over. There are ways around this, like maybe just giving it Moon Mirror Shield since your effect only affects your opponent for whatever reason, and you'll be able to play all the spells you want as quickly as you want, so that could work. Ever wanted to make a card demise player cry tears of unending sodium? Just call the Haunted this thing back and catch them entirely off guard. Bit of a meme, but also pretty viable. If you like Denko Sekka, you'll love this card. When Team 5Ds were chasing after Lazar for information, Jack had the brilliant idea to lure him in with a noodle promotion. In it, Crow dressed up as the legendary Cup Ramen Man, allowing people to duel him in order to win a year's supply of Red Demon's noodles. Yeah, where's that support card, Konami? Unfortunately, this was not enough to capture him, despite trapping him under a giant paper cup like a spider you're too nice to kill. Eventually, they did manage to catch him, leading him to an arcade that hid the secrets they sought, but only if they could defeat a digital Cup Ramen Man. Thus leading into the monster in question. Cup Meatball Cayenne is a level 5 dark spellcaster that destroys your opponent's hand when it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard. Now, hand disruption is always relevant to some degree, and while it would be better to banish or spin your opponent's resources, no one's ever expecting to lose their entire hand. It doesn't even need to be on the field, so you can destroy this and abuse the hell out of it in True King Dino's Yangzings, or TKDYZ. You know, that deck that got obliterated on the ban list for very good reason. Yeah, this fits right in, and maybe enough for them to drop the Dinos and the Yangzings, since, I mean, they were hit hard, in favor of something like Zephyrs for the added oomph they need. Cup Meatball Cayenne is a card that can and will be abused continuously, and with no regard for human life, much like actual ramen. It can even proc off your opponent using their own Cup Meatball Cayenne. The counter to this card is itself. That's the definition of a ban-worthy anything, in anything competitive ever. Remember Time Seal? I try not to, but nonetheless it was a trap card that skipped your opponent's next draw phase. I'd ask you to imagine that but on legs, but here he is in the digital cardboard for your viewing pleasure. Yowie is not just something I'd get demonetized for, but is also a level 3 reptile that does the very same as long as he's summoned in any manner. Yes, his stats are dreadful. Irrelevant. You want it to die so you can Monster Reborn it, you can call the Haunted it, literally anything that summons this thing back, it doesn't matter. If you can loop this not even many times a turn, but over multiple turns, which is actually much easier and requires much less setup since you have the luxury of drawing cards, unlike your opponent is entirely unable to draw or really progress the game much further on their end. One could hope that he'll never get printed due to his powerful effect. However, his good twin, Eperia, on Summon Draw 1, was recently announced to receive a printing featuring a hard once per turn, so live in utter fear and hope this turd-colored lizard won't be giving your deck the old yada anytime soon. Y'all remember Howard X. Miller? One of the most annoying deck users to face given his strategy is based on milling cards? Well, one of his main monsters is here, and it's Level Jar. Level Jar is a level 2 flip monster that can spin all monsters on the field to the deck and force both players to draw cards for the combined levels of their returned monsters upon flip. And if one of the returned monsters is not in that draw, you're forced to mill out your entire draw pool directly into the graveyard. You are not allowed to pass goal. Do not keep hand. Still take 200 damage from Trick Stars, though. Needless to say, this is a treat, especially when facing a Fusion or Synchro deck, as those monsters will not count towards what you need to draw in order to keep the cards drawn. However, what holds this back is the fact that decks like to run multiples of most cards on top of the question of how can the game really tell if that exact copy has been drawn and isn't another different copy that was still in the deck. It's twin-headed behemoth all over again. Not to mention how if they do get one of the cards shuffled, then they will keep that potentially massive hand in all the techs. Granted, at some point your opponent will simply have nothing left to draw and you'll win automatically. Maybe if you play something like Nightmare Archfiends to spam your opponent's board with high-level dudes and then sight that man into the Shadow Realm by making him draw a minimum of 18 cards. Lastly, I want to point out how Howard here almost beat Jaden twice by deck out, but failed due to Electrum and also the effect of NEO-SPACIAN Glowmoss. The worst NEO-SPACIAN. Maybe he could be on a future list video. Maybe of cards that have absolutely no business winning a one-man chili cooking competition, let alone a competitive event of any kind. Speaking of Lazar a little while ago with Cup Ramen Man, number 6 is one of his main deck monsters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's manga. That being Jester Puppet Trick Rider, with the effect of, if it is special summoned, you can add a spell from deck to hand. That's all she wrote. That's all you need. Search your Rota, your Raigeki, your archetype consistency, whatever, doesn't matter. However, he's only useful if special summoned, hence why he doesn't really make the top 5, because if it was a normal summon, yikes. That and Lazar used this powerful effect to search his ritual spell for Jester Puppet King Pantomime. You know, the worst ritual in the entire anime? At least, you know, I said it was. And if you're wondering how many there are 12 anime-exclusive rituals, at least meaning that effects have changed enough from real-life counterparts. Can't make a list out of that unless we want to talk about all of them, but there you go. Also, since searching a spell is kind of incredibly easy to understand why it's ridiculous, I'll take this time to tell you why there is exactly one ritual that is so much worse than its real-life counterpart, and I missed when I was talking about worst boss monsters the first time. Try to guess what it is in the comments, as that video should be dropping soon enough on my channel. Guess what? Searching spells is broke, so we can move on into the center of our discussion today. Donning her old biker gang attire and determined to challenge her son's resolve, here comes Yuya's mother, Yoko Sakaki, and her boss monster, Road Raven Red Queen. This majestically named automobile and rider, used by everyone's favorite Yoko, as the only other one broke up a lot of people's favorite band, is a powerful level 6 dark fairy monster that can, once per turn, target any number of your opponent's monsters, yoink them to your side of the field for the turn, while making their attack points 100. This powerful threat to the opponent allows for insane levels of bullshit, especially with links being involved. With this, anything without targeting protection is royally dead, and can then be used for your own versions of those cards while removing resources from the opponent. Just play the Monarch Stormforth and you have something that just link spams on its own and also Raigekis the opponent, including their indestructible monsters. Sadly, it's that need for a tribute summon that makes it just barely miss the top 3, as it would easily be number 1 if it had literally no stats and only 4 stars under its name. Hey look! The only redeeming part of Valen's armor deck! How you been, buddy? Big Bang Blow is a mighty machine monster that can burn for the combined attack of all monsters each user has, and then nuke the board when it's destroyed by battle. The only drawback is that you need to have 2 other monsters on your side of the field to make it work. Oh no, I need tokens. Well, that and the fact that it's a card tied to the armor monsters, who seriously need an upgrade in and of themselves. The entire deck has the worst monsters imaginable in them, except for this one, so the deck is almost okay if we count in this massive and game-breaking outlier into the averaging process. Ring of Destruction on everything in the board is exhilarating and ridiculous, and I wish the rest of the cards in this archetype would reach the same level. The only true compliment to armors as a whole, however, would be how they were implemented in the show as being a part of Valen. Dude punched an alligator and it blew up. Jesus Christ, if that isn't the rawest Australian energy I have ever felt in my life. Oh, great. I thought we wouldn't have to deal with you again, Night Shroud. No, not that one. You unholy pox on my house for ruining a segment of the cat. I mean, the whole thing was a train wreck that almost ruined my career and made me hate the game just through the amount of duels and utmost degeneracy, but I'll blame you for my own mishandling. Number 2 on this list is reserved only for a seemingly weaker monster, but certainly etches itself out in terms of strength. Darkness Outsider allows you to discard 1 card from your hand to look through your opponent's deck, and special summon a monster from their deck to your side of the field, and then puts Darkness Outsider into their deck. Yeah, that essential combo piece? You can steal it. Steal a hand trap that can work on the field like Ghost Ogre? Check. Being able to wreck any sense of consistency in their deck. Big fat check-a-rooney. Sadly, it being usable by the opponent as well as its summon being limited, given some of these main deck bosses have special summon conditions, only makes it number 2. However, I'm not even sure if having an ignoring summoning conditions clause would even make a difference to number 1. The bar is set that high, and summoning from the opponent's deck isn't even worth fighting it. So what could be number 1 at that rate? Well... FTK... What? You expect me to say more? Look at this thing! It may as well be 0 both ways for what it does. Why should I... What? Uriah... Okay, fine, I'll give them the rundown. Just put down that grass. It's still bent! Alright, Chaos End Ruler, the beginning and the end, is the ruler of both BLS, Chaos Emperor Dragon, your opponent's tomb, long redundant names, and your rise to top cut. You see, Sirotbait... Sirotbait? Sriracha sauce? It can't be normal summoned or set, and must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Light Warrior and a Dark Fiend from your graveyard. Your opponent can't react to a summon, and you may pay 1,000 life points to banish all cards in the opponent's hand, field, and graveyard, and then burn the opponent for 500 for each banished card. Simple. Either go second and win, or go first, make them draw a bunch, and then win. This thing is so powerful that it was never even used in a duel. It was just a treasure that some mooks named Scorch and Chills tried to steal in one of the first few episodes of Zexal. This card is literally so powerful that we only know what it does from secondhand accounts, and they gave it the same treatment as Yugi's actual real-life deck in GX. Encase that shit in whatever you want. Just protect it at all costs and make sure no one actually plays it, or else you have FTKs out the wazoo and straight into getting a prize card at Worlds. I mean, what prize card would actually stand up to this thing, really?